For more on this development, let's talk to security expert Kabir Adamu, who joins us live from Abuja. In addition to shutting down telecoms services, we're told also that 4 stations have been closed and markets have been closed in these particular affected areas. To imagine the suffering and the implication of this on the people is just so huge. But how strategic and sustainable do you consider this approach?
Good evening. So in terms of sustainability and whether they are strategic, I would say it's a mix of here and there. And I say this with the background of countering terrorism initiatives. In this instance, what the government is trying to do is to limit the operational capability of the bandits and other groups that are operating in the state. But in the process, they are also unfortunately affecting the residents, and that is what worries me. Where you have these types of situation, you want to make sure you carry the residents along. In other words, you are able to win their hearts and minds, and they support the measures that you have implemented. But in this instance, I haven't had the state government putting forward any palliative measures, any alternative measures that would ensure law-abiding citizens are not adversely affected by these issues at play. So I'm wondering, for instance, a family head who has to survive on a daily basis, perhaps he goes to a market, makes sales, and then feeds his family. All of a sudden, you are saying for 3 months, he cannot do that. So what arrangement have you put in place to allow him to fend for his family? That worries me a lot. Now, to also extend that argument, what the government has unwittingly done, unfortunately, is to now put that person back into the pool from which these criminals, terrorists, and bandits recruit from. And so those drivers of insecurity that we have been speaking about, that perhaps both the federal and state government need to address, unless and until those drivers are addressed, and that would include, for instance, funding for this segment of the population that will be affected by these policies, then all we're going to see is an unfortunate cycle.
Let's consider how effective this has been in states where it's been applied to before now. The Kaduna State Governor did mention that due to the ban or rather the shutdown on telecom service in neighboring Zamfara and Katsina State, we're told that these bandits crossed over to some part of Kaduna to make calls and demand ransom. It does sound like solving a problem in a place indeed creates another in another place.
So, this is not rocket science. Displacement of criminality is well documented. Criminologists and other fields of studies have documented this. They've showed clearly. And in this instance, we're dealing with a forest that straddles about 5 states. So if you prevent the group from operating in a particular state, all they will do is use the routes within those forests and spread to those other states. So if you had asked me this 2 months ago before the operation started in Zamfara and Katsina, I would have told you clearly what routes those terrorists bandits would pass and where they would come out from. So frankly, it's not rocket science, and I would have anticipated or thought that those that are implementing the kinetic measures in Zamfara and Katsina would have anticipated this and put in place measures to prevent the displacement of these criminals and bandits.
The lawmakers are now asking Mr. President to proscribe banditry and indeed call them terrorists. Of course, it makes sense to some that the proscribed groups in the past, when you compare what they have done with the damage that this group is really doing in the northern part of the country, then it justifies their call, doesn't it?
So the law that addresses this in the country, the Terrorism Prevention Act as amended 2013, and that law specifies clearly what terrorist acts are. And I can tell you clearly that kidnap, especially of the time committed by these bandits, is indicated there. Now, the second point, which is perhaps where my focus would be on, is the procedure for the declaration of any individual, any group, or any activity as terroristic in the country. It says clearly it's the competent court of jurisdiction, and the process perhaps should be started by three persons: the Attorney General of the Federation, the Office of the National Security Advisor, and then I think the presidency as well, although this needs to be clarified. Now, when the parliament makes such a statement, I'm wondering what medium that statement will be communicated, perhaps to the presidency or to any one of these other offices that I've mentioned. So I'm hoping that beyond the political statement, that action would follow. And then, of course, whoever receives that communication will do the needful, which is to, take the judicial action to declare those groups, terroristic. However, a caution from my field is risk management, and I am a bit concerned. How do you differentiate the bandit from the herder, for instance, that is in the forest, and who I would tell you with all sense of responsibility, for instance, is also trying to protect himself from the vagaries of the activities of these bandits in the forest. Currently, I am not seeing any security agency doing that. So if there is perhaps a mistake where a blanket declaration is made of all, for instance, Fulani herders as bandits and then automatically as terrorists, if this recall by the Senate is done, then would end up creating a bigger problem, because it means, for instance, the group of herders that are currently in the forest who run from Nigeria all the way into some parts of West Africa will be affected, and there will be consequences, unfortunately, for that. So the first thing, for instance, is to clarify and differentiate who is a bandit from the herder.
We'll see how all of this play out. The 3 months of telecoms service suspension in parts of Kaduna starts now, and we'll follow it up from here. A big thank you, security expert Kabir Adamu, for sharing your thoughts with us on the news tonight.